And here we have a view from the top of Lauderdale House, looking at the City of London. Back in 1666 you would have been able to see the Great Fire of London and the whole city burning. And now we look down at the Cafe Tea Lawn of Waterloo Park. Just behind the trees is the Holy Joe's Church. It's a Catholic church. And now the lower terrace with the beautiful manicured gardens and a man in a mask, because that's the times we live in. Panning across to Highgate Hill, we've got the Ghanaian embassy in the distance with the tower, and the name of the building is Cromwell House, which is round in the early 17th century. And down below we have the car park, which is being used by the NHS workers from the Whittington Hospital during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'll just take you behind this big chimney and show you the Cafe Tea Lawn. And one of the gardeners doing some planting. Looking across, you can see the middle pond in the distance and a few people sunbathing. We've got some little message here. David, love, Marion, 1975. Bit of history. So you can see Lauderdale House has got lots of chimneys. We've got 4 of them there. And another one with 5 chimney pots over the cafe side of the house. And it's starting to rain. So let's take a look at the cupola. This has just been recently restored. And who's that down there? That's Skander. Hi Skander! And the rain's getting heavier and heavier. I think we're going to have thunder and lightning. Back in the 50s there was 2 families living, one in this straight ahead and one in this house at the back here. 2 families of park keepers, and they used to have pet peacocks up on the roof here. I don't know if they were pets, but they were very familiar, and they used to feed them. And there was a washing line. There was people who used to bathe naked up here as well, sunbathe. And look at that rain. Just going to look over the conservatory. It's pelting it down. I think I need to come into the house now. I'm coming in. Oh God, this is a nice place to work.
Oh, I think I'm luxurious.
It's massive, great views, and just hand you over. So What kind of what's been happening during the lockdown? What have you been up
Lockdown. I think since early March, I was on furlough.
Yeah.
And I've recently come back to work, and it's been it's quite strange, you know. This is usually my happiest place. This is my office. This is my desk, full of
some sanitizer.
Sanitizer, everything that we need. We have some of the Tudor costumes that I won't be wearing, but you know, some of the kids, they like this. This is some of our equipment that was left, literally from our youth session that we run every Thursday, fresh at Lauderdale. I was about to do a session in batik, hence there being the hot plate and some of this. And this is one of our volunteers, one blue pizza. Here's what we made earlier. Over here, this is one of the perks of my job at Lauderdale House, is the view over kind of northwest London and the tea lawn over here. I'll give you a shot of that.
Some view.
I think you're lucky.
That's nice.
But yeah, on a usual day, one of my colleagues, Penny, would be sitting here, the fundraising officer.
Sure. Yeah.
Some of the volunteers, the young volunteers that I have, we were fully set.
Do you often use that much time at work?
Not especially. Fully stocked though, for the next year, you know, just in case.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of our more materials, it's a bit of a Mary Celeste. Not too many ghosts in the attic, but you know, I wonder.
What's in that?
I'm not sure. This I think it's a cupboard.
Stowaway.
Usually, but maybe we could check. Yeah. Have a look.
Drums. Let's have a look.
Hello. How are you doing?
We're all right.
Yeah. Shall I take
Socially distancing.
Socially distancing, yes.
Yeah.
I dressed up. This is my Tudor merchant look, channeling Sir Richard Martin, who built us. Guys wouldn't dress up, so I said I would. And I actually like it. It's my one opportunity a year when we do the Heritage Fun Day. Anyway, so this is actually the attic above the long gallery, and I'm just going to take you inside and have a look. We can find Scandis drums. I should be careful not to fall over the electric tray. And there we are, there's Scandis drums, which we use for the education project. And there's another treasure down here. This is a piece of plasterwork that has been in the house for a long, long time. We don't know where it was, but eventually we're going to find a space to show it off. But look at the detail on that. Really fascinating. Anyway, this attic takes you all the way down to the front of the house. And you can imagine, if you had access to this as a kid, that would be absolutely incredible. And actually, Scandis attic, the office there was a family of park keepers who lived there, and they had a little girl called Joy Wildman. And her friend lived in the flat at the front of the house with another family of park keepers, and they discovered that they could run the whole length of the house from one flat to the other and raced round ad infinitum, I think. Can you imagine how cool that was? Anyway, we'll head back and explore some more of the house. Right, I've escaped the attic and you didn't lock me in, thank you. Should you head down?
What are we going to do? Let's go.
Yeah, I think we need to go.
Let's leave.
We've got hand sanitizer. Need some blue roll?
Blue rolls, yeah. Grab the load. Let's head.
So we come down and we have this tiny staircase, which actually Peter sanded off the whole of it down to the basic wood after we when we did the refurbishment. So that's really lovely. It's a real health and safety hazard staircase, as you can see. And we're just going to nip back because I want to show you a tiny Victorian fireplace, which is just in the little finance office. Isn't that amazing? This room is a very small room, and you can just imagine that the maids were shut away up here. And I'm just going to show you that detail. I don't know how warm it would have kept you. It's very, very tiny. Anyway, next stage.
So here we're coming into the upper gallery, and what we have here is some Tudor beams. It's like an opening here, and it was a window opening looking down into the courtyard, and you can see some big mortise joints here, and this would have been where the bottom rail of the window would have come across. Up here in the side of the door jamb, you can see the beautiful moulding, which was cut out in situ with specialist tools, and that's how they never used to have any architrave or different kind of mouldings at that period in time. They used to just cut them out in situ out of the oak beams, and this is the mortise there, and a little bit of a tenon sticking out. It's very rough timber.
So this is the Lauderdale office.
Cheers.
We have our operations manager, Peter Gallagher. How are you doing?
There,
Hard at work?
yeah, I'm just doing some calculus. It's a very tough job.
Hard work. And we have where some of our rest of our staff would be. A nice view of the tea lawn.
A fab do that.
As you can,
Secret door to your left.
secret door. Everyone on furlough. Through to the long gallery. Here we have our socially distant. Hi, Stephen.
How you doing?
We all right?
Yeah.
You enjoying lockdown?
Wow. I'm doing a lot of piano playing, a lot of gardening.
So here we have the long gallery. Particularly long. Over this side, of course, we've got some hand sanitizer. Maybe you get a sneak preview of a socially distant lunchtime concert. Keys is going to be cleaned, everything fresh. We don't want no coronavirus. In this space, we hold weddings, rentals for funeral services, wakes, even some parties. We also run the youth program, which the young people would perform up here, and the space would be filled with people for the art dispute. Something that I like to show people, or some of the young people, just see. The plasterwork is not the original in Lauderdale House, but is about 350 years old, taken from a house in central London. In the plasterwork, some of the masonry, all done by hand. There's a little frog hidden, and if you're sharpish, you can also find there's another one hiding somewhere. Let's see if I can actually find him for you. Wait, or she. Looks more like a snake.
Okay, so I have become the self-appointed Fireplace narrator on our little tour. This is the Tudor fireplace in the Long Gallery. Dates back to 1582. Looks a bit weird. You can see there's a sort of box on the right-hand side. I always wondered what that was. And then when I went to Hampton Court, realised that actually it's half a Tudor chimney. The whole thing would really have been twice the size at one point, and there would have been a mirror image on the other side. So, but I'm going to have a quick diversion just round to this side, where we can see what Peter Gallagher's been up to during lockdown. Look, an amazing palette of colours is what he's been using to paint. Beautiful paintings, which he has hung in the lower gallery to keep him company. There is also another bigger paint pot. I think that might be just used for a little bit of touching up probably not his lovely artwork. Lots and lots of paintbrushes there, and strangely, cling film. I don't know whether that's for sandwiches or whether that is something useful that you do when you paint. Anyway, this room has many uses. It's been Peter's artist studio. It's also a beautiful, beautiful space to celebrate weddings and parties, of which we have had many. Now, I'm going to pop over here. The fireplace is particularly interesting because it is another entrance to the house from above. Now, unfortunately, oh look, we've got a light, but that chimney is blocked in. But behind here, we found chickens, candlesticks, and high-heeled shoes, which were bricked in behind there. And they found them in the 1960s when they did a bit of archaeology and discovery. The idea was that these magical items would stop people or evil spirits and the devil coming down the chimney. The originals are in the Museum of London, and strangely enough, shortly after they were removed, we had the Great Fire, so who knows. I've also brought down here a couple of our few very, very rare treasures. Because the house has been lived in for years and years, with lots of different people coming and going, we don't really have any furniture, hangings, or very much at all. But these were found in the external conservatory and courtyard. And look at this. That says St. Bartholomew's, and I roll it over, and I think you can possibly just see that says hospital. So we have our very own connection with Florence Nightingale. She was a great mate of Sir Sidney Waterlow's, and he set this house up as a convalescent home at some point in the Victorian age, and she helped him find the nurses. And that is our one link with the history of the house in that way, found in our basement. I love the shears, actually. I can imagine some park keeper sort of left them lying around and completely forgot, and they got buried, and here they are now. So here we are on the upper gallery, the landing. Now, this whole area would have been open courtyard when the house was first built, and was put in about the 1600s, and also the main staircase. I'm just looking out of the window here, which looks out across the top of the new covered courtyard, which had always been open, and you can see the roof lights for the conservatory. That would have been a big Victorian conservatory at one point, but that whole area kept changing, and you might have seen chickens running around, horses, all kinds of things. Also here we have the lantern or cupola. Now, this was very badly damaged in the fire, but is a complete replica because they had proper photographs and all kinds of information. So you can see the rather wonderful floral design there, and a few fruit, I think. And that's where we saw Skander from the bottom and Peter waving from the top. It's a shame we haven't got a blue sky, because it looks really quite stunning when you do that. Coming down, we have the staircase, which is a Georgian staircase. And, oh look, standing at the bottom, we have Peter Gallagher. Peter, what are you standing in front of?
I'm standing in front of a trompe-l'oeil, which came from the early 1600s. And it's a painting on this back wall of banisters.
And the banisters are the white...
The white features, and there's a little bit of shading of the red around there. These banisters would have come round onto the side walls as well, and they would have actually gone down this way because we've discovered that the staircase wasn't this way around originally. It came up this way, and I'll show you how the staircase moved. So it came up here, and you'll see there's a little ramp up here, so that the staircase, the landing would have raised up onto another level here. These mortise joints would have taken some beam supports for a raised landing, and then the staircase would have returned up this way. So up that way and returned this way. This was discovered in the early 1960s after the fire.
It's amazing it survived, isn't it?
Yeah, we're really lucky to have this. Not many places have these old trunk lines. They've got some interesting things going on with them. They've got some.
Some hair there.
This is some hair mixed with a lime plaster. These are horse hairs, so these two used to be used for bonding the lime together to give it more strength. And so yeah,
it's quite intriguing, all the detail, isn't it?
This would have been all over the house. This kind of plaster, lime and.
And if I work my way up, we have some wallpaper, don't we?
Yeah, we've got some wallpaper on the.
Are those flowers?
I think they're flowers. Over here is a better example of.
Oh look,
some leaves and flowers.
And the nails would be really old too, wouldn't they?
Some of them are old, some not so old. There's some interesting things. I mean, I don't know what this is. Why anyone would do this to chop out that kind of shape. And this is happening all the way along. I don't know why, unless they had some sort of a packing in here.
Or a top.
For some wainscoting that would have been. So this is the Tudor beam under here, and so they may have to cut it out in order to put some panelling, in order for it to be fit upright.
It's
intriguing, still a bit of a
isn't
puzzle.
So, this is a bit more of a recent story of the 20th century Lauderdale house. Now, as some people may know, this house was renovated after a great fire in the 60s and turned into an art centre by some of the directors and board members that are currently here. Now, there's a particular story. During this period in the 60s, there were park keepers that used to look after Waterloo Park, living in this space here at the front of the house, and also across the landing where we have our offices currently, and also in the long gallery, which is just round the corner. Now, this fire was brought to the attention of the park keepers and the family during the night by a young German shepherd dog who could smell the fire. Barking and barking, it woke them all up. And the park keeper would have come out here along this corridor and would have run out here. This would have been a large white door rather than glass, as we have it nicely renovated. Would have pushed it open, and with the opening of the oxygen, where the fire first started, from the boiler room downstairs, it would have whirlwinded like a tornado all the way up to the Cupola. So he would have closed the door really quickly and gone back into his flat, would have taken his children and put a ladder out the front window. And the funny thing is, with the German shepherd that saved the day in the first place, the story goes that he would have tried to walk down and step out of the window down the ladder with the German shepherd in his arms and misstepped and fell all the way down the ladder out the front here. And as you can see, during the renovation only a couple of years ago, for old time's sake, some of the char-grilled Tudor beams have been made a feature of.
If you'd like to come in, we've got the Tudor door frame. It's from 1582, like the rest of the building. And if you'd like to come in, this would have led into the courtyard from the lower gallery area. And you can see some interesting marks on the upright door jambs, which looks like they've been cut into the timbers. It's like three lines and then a cross below. And then up on the top, above the door, where the door head would have been, with this cross line and then something that looks like a Y backwards. And below this is where the top of the door would have slotted into this cut-out door jamb. The way they would have made this is they would have cut across at 45 degrees and then use the coping saw to cut out this particular shape, which would have been the same shape as the moulding going in on the door head. So the top piece would have been a solid piece of timber, similar to that, but it would have just gone in straight, and this was marked to cut around it. And so that would have been done with a coping saw, which they still use today when they're doing skirting boards and sometimes architraves. Up above we've got some apotropaic marks, like some large crosses and single lines coming down. I think the reason that they had these above doorways was because to stop evil spirits coming into the house. They'd often have them around door frames, and also in fireplaces they'd mark the brickwork and certain timbers within fireplaces. And sometimes the symbols have got meanings. They would mean there was one that I've read about, which just means go away or keep out. And so they're not just indiscriminate markings, they've all got purpose. Sometimes they're carpenter's marks to tell you where the timbers would go, that they would match up. So you might have two timbers with similar markings on, which means that they go together. But I think some of these are probably for good luck, because they don't look like carpenter's marks to me altogether. They look like they've got some another meaning. So there we have the Tudor door frame.
Okay, so this is now the entrance hall and our front door. Once upon a time, it was a rather grand dining room, and there's a little snippet in Pepys's diary telling you all about Lord Lauderdale entertaining him for dinner. Also here we have Nelgwyn's bath. Nelgwyn's bath is a sort of fairly remarkable item. It's been here since the 1600s, but I'm going to let Skander explain it because that's much easier for me.
So, as Catherine said, here we have Nelgwyn's bath. This was installed by a former resident called William Mead in the late 1600s. William Mead was a prominent Quaker, and so it seems quite strange to have something, as they would have displayed on the marble counter here some of his silver and gold, perhaps plates for his dinner parties or something like this, which seems a bit strange for a Quaker. But during this time there was also a quite serious trial for William Mead as a Quaker, and Quakerism as a whole, which probably at that time was quite a revolutionary movement. But they were allowed to gather at Lauderdale House because it was outside of the city. But attending a large gathering in central London, William Mead was going to be prosecuted by the king at that point in time. And so there's a history of the independence of the jury that was established during this trial, and William Mead was quite outspoken, quite cheeky with his banter, if you want to say. So what I explain with the young people is we have a project called The Art of Dispute, which talks about this history. And it kind of feels particularly relevant at this point in time where people, especially over the last couple of days, have been banned from meeting in large numbers in central London for protest reasons. So the legacy goes on, so to say, Lauderdale House.
Right, and this is another fireplace, rather grander and bigger than the ones upstairs. It's Victorian. Above it, you can see we have this relief, which shows the story of Achilles and Briseis. Achilles is looking a bit forlorn because Briseis, his girlfriend, is being taken off to be the concubine of another king. It's a bit of a sexist story, really, but he looks a bit woeful and self-indulgent, so I think possibly she might be doing better. He's also got quite dirty toenails, if you have a look. There we go. He was put in place, or the whole thing was put in place, by one of my favourite characters of Lauderdale House, James Yates, who is a collector of antiquities. Probably quite dodgy in today's context, but they used to have archaeological parties, which were swinging events and a bit like speed dating for the Victorians. You can imagine them all sort of wandering around the gardens below, sort of sipping their wine and discussing, I don't know, sarcophaguses and pharaohs, and then just sort of going, oh, how do you fancy? Anyway, I'm sure it was much more dignified than all of that. And we are now going to go up the chimney. I'm going to show you what it might have been like if you were a Victorian sweep. On the way, you have a quick look at the detail of the marble. This is very old and was repaired when we did the refurbishment. Quite interesting. So I'm going to see if I can manage to put the torch on. This brick is much more recent, but as we go up here, where you see the white piping, then it's Tudor brickwork. So there we go. That gives you a bit of a feel of what it might like being to be a chimney sweep. This fireplace is not immediately below the Tudor one up in the long gallery, but if you look at the network of chimneys, I think you probably would find it joined up, and you can imagine being a little sweep. You could get quite lost in the top of the house and maybe never appear again.
So I'm just going to go up the chimney like a chimney sweep, showing the little features. We're going pretty high. I don't know what's up there. We're getting nearly to the top. This is old. This chimney is old, and the bricks are old handmade bricks. There's spiders up here. There's webs, cobwebs everywhere, and it smells really old. It smells of old fires from centuries ago, and it's got an interesting shape. It kind of moves in and out and meanders around the place, and I'm stuck up here, you know. I don't know if I'll ever get out. I think I'll try and escape. So, goodbye to you, chimney, for another 100 years. Or whenever.
So, here we have the courtyard of Lauderdale House. In Tudor times, this would have been actually open space between different parts of the house, and the maids perhaps would have ran across in the cold or the rain, as you saw earlier. As you can see, that would have been where we were earlier, up on the roof. But there's a great light in here, and just to point out, these pictures were a project by our youth group that happens every Thursday from 5 till 8 p.m. They've done a photography project, and we've displayed it for everyone, and usually people would have been coming through the house and making their own comments on these photographs here. We have recently got our youth program now online, Thursdays, Microsoft Teams, fresh, not quite at Lauderdale, but in isolation. So far we've done a photography project using camera phones, smartphones, laptop cameras. I particularly like this image, which is the back of Lauderdale House, which she showed from upstairs, the tea lawn. And you can see they're like ghostly images. Enjoying the dressing up, like Catherine was earlier. This project was led by Polly Hancock, one of the resident photographers at Lauderdale House. Now I'm just going to go into the conservatory. I have Peter here chilling. I have Catherine here chilling. Now this space is a bit dark at the moment, and you can see we have a lot of the cafe stuff, just to say, as it's only operating takeaways. They're stacked up here, but as you can see again, the tea lawn from the ground floor. People are outside enjoying. We have our dedication to the NHS with the rainbows, showing out to everyone our support.
And right, here's the kitchen. David, can we come in?
Come on in, Catherine.
Excellent. Oh, look, what are you making there?
Just putting the lemon drizzle onto my lemon cakes. We all make all our cakes here in house.
Very nice. That looks good. So, how have you been in lockdown?
It's glad to be back at work. Lockdown's been a bit hard, homeschooling and all that. it's good to be back.
Yeah, that's good. You
Yeah.
opened up a couple of weeks ago, didn't you?
Yes, this is our third Wednesday open,
Brilliant.
and it's great to
No,
be back open and doing things.
it's lovely. Can I come through and pretend that I'm at the counter?
Come on through.
Excellent.
Come on.
Right. So this is what it's like to be behind the counter. We have our social distancing. There we go. Now, if I stand here, where the ice creams are at the moment, there's a well under that, and that goes back to about the 1600s. So there you go. How have you been, Vaton?
I've been okay. It's good to be back at work.
Yeah?
It's good to
You
be
happy?
back at work.
No.
It's good to be back into the semi-normality.
Yeah, no, excellent.
And seeing you, of course.
Oh yeah, no
That's
problem.
why it's been good, and I think it's getting even better.